will have a very special Q&A with co-founder Jasmine Myers, and who you will see in several of these shorts. And then we will have, after the talkback, we will have a little premiere of something special, something short and special, so short and sweet, and that will also get you excited for something else that is not ready. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and without further ado, let's watch some shorts.
Oh, I just slapped the side of his head until he'd stop, and I said, "Young man, I will share with you the secret. There is one way, tried and true, to avoid compassion fatigue. Just don't give him any pity in the first place." And he said, "Well, my grandson called me the other day. I asked him how he was, and he said, 'Grandma, I think I'm getting some compassion fatigue.' And I said to him, 'What in this pretty little world is compassion fatigue? Speak English, you fluffy-mouthed millennial.' Compassion fatigue." And he said, "Oh, Grandma, it was such a hard year for everyone that you just get to feeling overwhelmed." And I said to him, "You know who had a right to feel overwhelmed? My grandmother raised 28 children in a one-room log cabin in Nebraska. They don't even have any trees in Nebraska. She had to carry the logs from Ohio herself while pregnant with her 28 children." And he said, "But Grandma," and I said, "You know who had a right to feel overwhelmed? My mother single-handedly ran a hospital for one-eyed soldiers during the Great War. She couldn't get any supplies because of the rationing. She had to hire a local beaver to gnaw down saplings to use as crutches. You think you heard her complaining about contraption fatigue? No, she was too busy keeping those one-eyed soldiers from running into door frames because they had no depth perception." And he said, "But Grandma," and I said, "You know who has a right to feel overwhelmed? The good Lord. 30 years on earth, people pestering him with their lame feet and their dead relatives. Now they still won't stop caterwauling at him about how overwhelmed they are." And I said, "Did you hear me complaining about this new artisan fatigue when I was listening to your grandfather bellyache for 94 years? No, I just slapped the side of his head until he'd stop. And I said, 'Young man, I will share with you the secret. There is one way, tried and true, to avoid compassion fatigue. Just don't give him any pity in the first place.' And he said, 'But Grandma, I thought you said your parents came from Poland in 1938. What's this about Nebraska?' And I said, 'Michael?' And he said, 'No.' And he said, 'Oh, I'm so very sorry, ma'am. I must have dialed the wrong number and gotten the wrong grandmother.' And I said, 'Well, I don't know about that, but you're certainly the wrong grandson.' And I said, 'I wouldn't have said all of those things if I had known you weren't mine.' And he said, 'Oh, I understand, ma'am. You were just trying to toughen him up. You didn't mean any of it.' And I said, 'No, I would have told you to go deal with it and go bother your own grandmother. And have her teach you some manners in the meantime, calling me the wrong grandmother.'"
Lonely? Yeah, of course I'm lonely. All right, go on and say it. No one expects a cute bunny to be lonely. Oh yeah, everyone wants to see the fluffy bunny. But do they really even know me? Sometimes I'm loneliest when people are petting me because I think, are they petting me for me or for them? Is it really me they want, or would any rabbit do? The fact that no one expects me to be lonely just makes it worse. Sometimes I just want to snuggle up on someone's lap and know I belong. But most days I think, I'm sorry, there was kale. What was I saying?
Hey, it's okay. I get lonely too. How about I sit with you and we can at least be lonely together? Oh, right here's a good spot.
Wait, who are you?
Hey, you know, if you added a couple of throw pillows, you could have a really nice place here.
Excuse me?
Yeah, maybe a potted plant. Of course, I might eat it.
I don't feel comfortable with this.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
Did you bring popcorn?
I knew there was something I forgot.
Yeah. So, like, I don't get what's supposed to be so special about Jesus. I mean, okay, he was nice, but I mean, a lot of people are nice. Christians try to make this big thing out of how he, like, was willing to talk to people with leprosy and, like, didn't totally ostracize them, but that's not that big a deal. It's just that he was living in a really judgmental society that shamed people just for walking around with a disease. But, like, hashtag not that impressed, because to me, they're human beings. And, like, he only did what any decent human being would do. Dude, if you're coughing, go home! No one wants you around when you're like that, you selfish bag of germs. Yeah. So, I don't get why some people think it's okay to walk around with a disease.
We may joke about human nature, but the virus is no laughing matter. Please remember to love your neighbor by taking any precautions you can to keep them safe. Remember, you heard it in the Bible first.
Hello, I am back, and I am Helga, and I am here to pump you up. I hear that some people, they're saying that Christians should not be sad, yeah? And they're saying that your faith is weak if you're crying, yeah? And they're saying that Christians should always have the joy and the happiness in the heart, yeah? And you know what? These people saying this are sissies. Oh, you too scared to face the grief, and you afraid that people laugh at your faith if you're crying, and you scared that Jesus not strong enough to handle all your sadness? Well, I am here to pump you up. Today we work on new exercise, okay? You pump the tears and you let them make you stronger. You say, I am ready for your grief. Come here and I smack you in the forehead. And then you let Jesus pick you up and put them down, yeah? Our sponsor today is Jesus Juice. It's soaked through the hard parts of your heart that the regular sports drink just can't penetrate. It's softened from the inside, even for the heart that been hiding from the feelings for years. And it pump you up enough to say, I can cry about this. Jesus, he's strong enough for all the tears.
I did a bad thing. I don't know what it was, but I know I'm a bad dog. I know because I have to wear the cone of shame. I can just imagine what the other dogs must think of me. I can almost hear that smug little poodle down the street laughing. The only good part is it hides my face so they can't look at me. My owner says it keeps me from biting the itchy sore thing on my ankle. But I'm biting myself on the inside. He tried to take it off yesterday, but I hid under the bed. He's such a good owner, he shouldn't have to deal with my bad dog cone. Of course, it took me 2 hours to get back out from under it with this thing wedged in under there. But you know, he's so good. that even after that, he reached into my bad dog cone to pet my ears, even though he has itchy sore things on his hands. I wonder why he's not ashamed of them. And then sometimes he scratches under it for me when... He's home! He's home! Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, he's home! Nothing this exciting has ever happened to me since yesterday! Hi.
There's a good girl. Okay, you ready to take this thing off?
No! How will I show my face to the other dogs now? I need my cone of shame. I don't even know if I'd know who I am without it.
You know, if you let me take it off, there'll be room to pet you with both hands. Both hands? Who's a good girl?
Oh, I know this one. Is it the Pekingese next door?
Oh, who's my good girl?
Is it the lady who brings the packages?
Oh, yes, you are.
Is it that squirrel out there?
Yes, you are a good girl.
Wait. Is it me? Oh boy, pick me. Can I be your good girl? I'll be your good girl. Can I be it?
Hello.
Hello!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locus Presents, our Q&A section. I'm here with Jasmine, the co-founder of Still Small Theatre Troupe. Say hello, Jasmine.
Hi, how you doing?
I am good. How are you doing tonight? Are you excited to discuss these?
I am, and I'm excited to be back to being a human because, you know, spending time as a dog sometimes gets to you. It's the fleas
Well,
mostly
my
that are the
grandson
problem.
called me the other day.
Okay, so let's sort of. So I wanted to start with sort of a basic beginning question before we jump into the dogs and the rabbits and
Sure.
the Germans. How did Still Small Theatre Troupe begin? How did you get from there to here?
So it was something that I had known that I wanted to do for a very long time. So when I went to college, I kind of tailored my college education to be able to do that. So I majored in theater, but then I minored in English with creative writing, nonprofit management, and biblical studies, so that I could form a nonprofit that would be a faith-based nonprofit and that I could continue writing and do high quality theater with it. So far that plan has been working. What we did was about half a year after I graduated from college, I just started gathering people in my apartment every other week to pray about it. And just to say, like, here's something that we want to start up. We don't really know what it should look like, and we don't really know how to go about making it work. So let's just pray and see where things go. And then about, like 8 months, 10 months later, we started work on our first show. And we've been working since then.
First of all, what was the first show?
Yeah, the first show was called The Prophet Project, and it was a script that I had developed in college that the theater troupe that I ran there, which was sort of a prototype of this one, performed. And that is a very artsy, eclectic kind of piece. It's formed entirely out of quotes from the Jewish Bible. And it sort of tells the story of God's love for the world through like a collage of their writings. So it tells the story of what Christians see as like, here's what God did for us and here's how God feels about us through the words that message is based on. So it incorporates dance, it incorporates music, and it incorporates mask work. And we revived it again in 2019, which was pretty fun. And we have the DVDs and stuff available on our website of that one. But yeah, we figured since we already had the script and we'd already worked with it, it was a solid one to start off with.
All right, go on and say it. No one expects
just while we're talking about things on the
everyone wants
website,
to
if you're
see the fluffy
tuning in,
bunny.
you can see Still Small
But do they
Theater,
really
RE
even know me?
Theater
Sometimes
.com
I'm
for
loneliest
more
when
information on
because I
past
think,
stuff. But
are they
let's talk
so
about
We actually have both domain names, so you will get there either way.
amazing, very smart, great tips you get on this show. So we just watched a series of shorts, which is obviously different than sort of this what you just described as like a artistic eclectic. So tell me about these shorts.
Yeah, so some of the things that happened for us during the pandemic were really an answer to kind of years of prayer. You know, we'd been wanting to film more of our stuff anyway. We'd been praying about how to get out to a wider audience. We'd been praying about how to make materials available to places so that they could sort of use them for their own purposes and not just sort of have a one and done show. So when the pandemic shut us down, we ended up filming instead of performing our Easter show that year. And then we ended up forming some curricula that we were able to do online. And then that fall, my pastor asked if I would be willing to do a couple of short videos just as introductions to sermons for him. He wanted some ways to talk about some of the tough things that we were dealing with in the pandemic in a way that would be helpful, but also just in a way that sort of brought some light and some humor to it. So that's where Helga and Edith got their start. Those are actually different videos than the ones we showed tonight, because those were specific to church life, how to maintain a relationship with God when all of your usual supports are gone, and how to maintain relationships with people even though your usual relationships aren't happening the way that they usually do. So that's where those guys started out.
Yeah, Edith is talking about compassion fatigue.
Yes.
Which was a real sort of buzzword for a little bit. And I think that do you want to talk a little bit about your character creation? And sort of we just watched you take on a large number of characters. So do these where do you start with one of these shorts?
Yeah, so I just kind of start with thinking about the idea that we're working with. So I've been a writer for many years, and I've written full-length plays, I've written musicals, and it really kind of depends on the project where it comes from. Some of them you have a story that you just really want to tell. Some of them you have an idea that you really want to talk about, and the story comes out of that. So it really just kind of depends on the project. For these ones, because there were specific subjects that we wanted to talk about, that's where I started with those. And just sort of thinking about, what are the actual struggles that we have with these things? What are some of the realities of this situation? And then what are some of the ridiculous things about life? And what are some of the ways that we can touch on what's true while also laughing at how true absurdity is? So a lot of the ones that we showed tonight came actually from a second series of videos that my pastor also asked me to do when we were doing a sermon series on difficult emotions. So that's why there's videos in there dealing with loneliness and compassion fatigue and sadness and shame, just things that we all deal with. It was a really great series on learning how to deal with that. But because they were difficult, we figured we'd need some things to lighten them up a bit.
Things that affect all of us, including rabbits and dogs.
Rabbits are relevant to everybody.
Is that your rabbit?
Yes. So I actually live on a fiber farm. We raise llamas and alpacas and Angora rabbits. The rabbits are really my mom's gig, but she allowed me to borrow one.
Is that your cat?
That was my mom's cat. My cat is too afraid of everything to be part of this project, but my mom's cat is interested in everything and often licks the rabbit's ears when she's trying to groom them because he wants to be part of whatever's going on.
These are good. So these are great actors, is what you're saying.
Yes, they were very uncooperative, actually. I used the little bit of footage I could.
Speaking of,
it's good. Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was going to say, it was good that mostly all they had to do was sit there.
Yes, and be expressive.
Yes.
But speaking of uncooperative actors, what is it like? What is it like directing yourself?
Well, I'm not a very cooperative act. No, wait a minute. It's fun because I agree with myself usually. So we don't really have many artistic conflicts. It's also very hard because I've got to set up the shot and know where I'm going with it. And it's just very hard not to have a second pair of hands. So for some of the, for some pieces I've done, like the update videos on our new project that we have coming up, I was able to talk for a while and then do those little, slide motion sequences between things. I didn't do that for any of these. So I had to, know the whole thing and do the whole thing in one shot before I could, stop it and go back to the beginning and try again. So it's definitely tough doing this alone from home. #pandemic.
But it's still, they all turned out, I mean, they don't feel like pandemic shorts. I guess, I guess that as a genre, we don't really know what that means. Yeah. I want to give you a chance to sort of talk about each one of these individually.
Sure.
Because when we sort of started getting going, before we went live, you were telling me little stories about each of these characters, and I want those to be in the record. So the first one that we watched, which is replaying right now, was Edith Gets Compassion Fatigue.
Yes, Edith does have compassion fatigue. She's just got no pity for anybody. Yeah, so I created Edith in that first group of videos that my pastor asked me about. Her first one was on maintaining community, and she was going through all of the things that she has lived through. And community has still been able to survive those things. So she was sort of encouraging people in her own crusty way. But yeah, she's definitely my favorite character to play. I think I am an old lady at heart. And so it was very fun to just slip into her prattle and just walk around the house in character as Edith.
Her short has some of the coolest sort of mise en scène, a little bit of, we got the bear, we have the framing with it's very lovely.
Thank you. I actually, I pinned my curtain rod to our shades in our dining room. I just moved everything around and pinned my curtains up and found anything that looked tchotchke-ish and stuck it on her table.
So then the next one we have up is the rabbit, is loneliness according to a rabbit. Do you have anything else to sort of add?
Yeah, I'm very grateful to my colleague Amelia for voicing the bunny for me. She did the classic Mel Blanc thing and had some kale with her to chomp on for those noises. She and I work like a well-oiled machine. She's my right-hand woman when it comes to pretty much everything in the troupe. And she's also adorable, so it was kind of a perfect fit to just ask her to be a rabbit for a short time.
Do you want to talk about any other sort of troupe collaborators besides Amelia?
Yeah, so I didn't actually get to collaborate with anybody but Amelia for these shorts, which was unusual for us and kind of sad because we're a really close team and we work really well together. So I co-founded the company with a very good friend from college, Eli Donis, who was actually the first person to direct for us also. And then Amelia and her husband, Kenny, are on my admin team. And we sort of make things happen. But our cast of characters show by show changes quite a lot, just because, shows are different sizes and people have different things on their plates. But we tend to have sort of a core group of people that work with us for a lot of shows. I'm really looking forward to getting to work with them again because it has been too long.
Yes. So we need some big productions.
Yes. Looking forward to getting back to doing big productions.
We need big production, according to a rabbit. Too many people, according to a rabbit. Okay, so Jesus and the Leper. This is another sort of strong character for you to take on. Tell us a bit about this one.
So, Indigo Starling is her name. She is the sister of my other character, Vertigo Starling, who is a fraudulent psychic. They, sometimes it's just fun to mess around with voices, and sometimes it's just fun to mess around with the ridiculousness that people have. Our culture tends to think of itself as very accepting and very compassionate and defending everybody, but we often don't live up to that. And so the ironies of when we're judgmental frankly amuse me quite a lot. So
Yeah.
no, that was something to play with. But the real reason that I made that short actually was just because I was so struck by how much our masking requirements right now are similar to the Old Testament leprosy laws. You had to cover the lower part of your face. You had to stay away from people. And I think people who are in the church or in synagogues and have read those for most of their lives, we didn't get it until now. We didn't get what that was like, and we didn't get why it was there. And I think until you're in a place where there's an infectious disease going around, you don't get it. And it's very easy as a modern person to look back on laws like that and say, wow, they were really harsh. They stigmatized people. That was awful, which is the way a lot of people look at those laws. But it was a law that was really trying to take care of people. And, we're dealing with some of those same questions now of, how do you take care of people without ostracizing or stigmatizing or all of the things. It's just as complicated now as it was then. But because it was then, we often don't have compassion for it. But it just, for me, it made it stand out so much more sharply. Think of how scared people have been. And at the time, leprosy was the same thing. It was something that would absolutely change your life. It was something that would cut you off from everybody you ever knew. So the fact that Jesus was willing to touch people who had leprosy is freaking shocking and beautiful. And it was a tongue-in-cheek attempt to step back and take a look at that beauty that we often don't get to see.
And a great way to do it. And also, I don't know, it's this is why I love this show, because what a beautiful complex answer for something that we just watched that sort of made us giggle a little bit and had but yeah I love this sort of overarching theme that we're talking about with compassion for people across time, compassion for people across religion, I'm into that. But moving on, Pumping the Tears. Tell me about Pumping the Tears.
Well, you see, I slip into a German accent very often because I am German, and this happens in rehearsal many times. We did The Winter's Tale by William Shakespeare, and Angelo, probably half the key to his character is that he's from a Germanic people. That is why he is so cold inside and so very strict. And so just as a rehearsal technique for my very best friend, Eli, I decided to be Angelo's disapproving mother. And so this accent just happens a lot in rehearsal. But I think it was actually Pastor Bill who suggested Hans and Franz for one of the videos. It was a video on sort of maintaining your relationship with God, even though we were, especially early on in the pandemic, we were just kind of tempted to let everything go. We're still working off pounds from some of that, some of us, myself included. But it was, so that particular first short with Helga, which we didn't see tonight, was on, sort of maintaining some discipline in life and working on maintaining that relationship. So my pastor was like, yeah, what about Hans and Franz with the, we'll pump you up. And I was like, yeah, sure, we'll figure that out. But it was early enough in the pandemic that we really couldn't do anything with more than one person in frame. So it was hard to do a Hans and Franz themed thing without Franz or Hans. And so Helga took over for Franz and Hans because they couldn't make it. So that was the first Helga video, was advertising soul pants, because there's a psalm that says "My soul pants for you," and
Sorry. What a great, anyway, and then there's this one.
Yes, so Helga moved on to understanding life a little better and not selling soul pants anymore, but instead actually having some insight, at least. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Will you tell me about the animation, the Jesus Juice animation? Who did that?
I did that.
You did that?
I did that in my very rudimentary iMovie application. I just made stop motion pictures on preview and just rotated it a bit as I went along.
I think it looks, I thought I could have, it's great. It's my favorite part of all of these, is the Jesus
thanks.
pouring in the heart, filling up. Very cool. Have you done any other animation?
No. We're lucky.
Well, we'll talk about that, because I think that you could.
Thank you.
So pumping up the tears. Oh, you have another. Do you want to tell your story about you don't have.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just. I'm glad we got the shots that we did for that, because if I had to do any continued shots of the bucket over my head, it just would not have worked. I ended up so wet from that because the person that I borrowed that jug from did not have a stopper for it. So I filled it up with water and then gorilla taped it closed, but it leaked. So I'm bench pressing this giant 5-gallon water bottle over my head, with it leaking down my sleeve. So I think you actually can see some of it in the shot that I used, but I eventually had to stop, and that was with me. I think I had my phone gorilla taped to my music stand in order to take that shot. This was, again, doing things without a crew, so it was touch and go, trying to get it into frame enough to see the writing, but not in front of my. It was tough. So I ended up very wet.
We're pro gorilla taping things to things.
It's good stuff, and Gorilla Glue is good stuff too. This is free advertising for Gorilla everything.
Yes. Okay, we have one more to talk about specifically, and then we
yes.
can talk a little generally about so the cone of shame.
Yes.
The cone of shame. What is this? Tell us about the cone of shame.
So, this was also a sermon lead-in. It was actually for a sermon that I preached. And if you're talking about shame, yeah, it was a sermon series on difficult emotions, and shame is a very difficult emotion to deal with. So I don't quite know where the idea came from, but if you're talking about shame, you kind of got to talk about wearing the cone of shame, because what dog doesn't have nightmares about wearing the cone of shame?
The most extreme form of shame is the cone of shame.
Yes, because it comes to a point. Yeah, well, and it just seemed like it had some relevance, because not only was it fun to do, but there are certain ways that we deal with shame that are unhealthy that I was able to bring into the short. So for instance, just sort of the inability to let go of the shame that we carry, because it's defined who we are for so long. that comes into it, and really the vulnerability of letting shame be dealt with. We don't like experiencing shame, but in order to really get rid of it, you need to let somebody touch it and take it off. And that in itself is so vulnerable that a lot of times we don't do it. And so there was just a lot of relevant stuff that seemed to fit well into that scenario. So it was a it was an interesting Sunday morning because people saw me being a dog and then it switched over immediately to me preaching. Fortunately, the video was pre-taped, so I did not have to preach in the cone of shame.
No, or the ears. You rigged up the ears to flip up at one point.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, what is it ever strange sort of immediately having, I mean, I'm sure it's strange, but what is the experience of immediately having to sort of talk seriously and address a group of people when you've just had, this clip shared?
I mean, fortunately, I didn't really have to watch it first because they were streaming the service at that point. It was a while before we were able to get back into our church building. So I was, preaching to an empty room, to a camera, although I did have members of the worship team around me giggling. So I guess it wasn't too hard to switch though, because usually when I preach, I have such copious notes that I'm trying to smash into the time that I have that I switch gears pretty readily into it. I think it probably was a little more jarring for the people who were watching it, having to go from seeing a dog to actually listening to a sermon.
So for you, it's no problem.
Not really, no.
That's amazing.
And that's part of theater too, is just switching gears really fast. This, doing film at all is fairly new for our company. We are a live theater company, and many people who have worked with us have also worked for a company called History Alive, which is in Salem. But it does historical reenactment that is interactive. So you have to be well versed in what you're talking about, but you also have to be able to improv off of it. And you also have to be able to switch characters at the drop of a hat, because you're usually playing, 2 or 3 characters in a show, and switching back and forth, when it becomes interactive. If they call back somebody that they heard from before, you have to switch back into them. So character switching is something that when you're used to doing live theater is not as much of a problem.
Yeah, do you want to sort of, we're almost at the end of our time, but I'm going to ask you if you want to talk a little bit about the transition, anything else you want to say about the transitions from sort of theater to film stuff?
Yes.
Or theater on film.
What a wonderful segue. So in 2015, we started performing a musical called The Diary of Perpetua. And it's adapted from one of the oldest known documents written by a woman. And it's also really relevant today, because I think the latest statistic was 380 million, maybe 365. Anyway, there are about 1 in 8 Christians globally face pretty severe, dangerous levels of persecution for their faith. She was a young mother in North Africa who was arrested for illegally being a Christian, and wrote about it while she was in prison and smuggled it out the day before she died. So she was pretty hardcore, and her words are just incredible. So it's an adaptation of her diary that we've been performing on stage for the last 6 or 7 years. And then last year we got the opportunity to adapt it into a film because the pandemic prevented us from doing a large live theater. So we put out a casting call, and I thought that only local actors would apply, but we got actors from all over the country who came together and made this project. And I have been editing it at Northampton Open Media, and when it closed down for Omicron, I've been editing it at home, and it's going to be coming out in April. And we have a teaser trailer that is coming out just about now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without further ado, here is the teaser trailer, and we will see you all in 1 second.
Alrighty.
Come now and hear of Perpetua.
Perpetua, stop this. You are a good Roman citizen.
I am also a Christian, Papa.
Please! Please! Just let go of your pride.
I can't say my life turned out how I expected, but I can't say I have got any regrets.
We are back. That was the trailer for Diary of Perpetua.
That's the first time it's aired. I made sure that it doesn't go live on our YouTube channel until tonight. So you guys are the first to see it.
Is there anything you need to plug related to that? Where should people learn more about it?
On our website, www.stillsmalltheatre.com. And as we mentioned before, it works with the R before the E or the R after the E. Any way you spell theater will get it to us. So there will be more information on our website. We will be premiering in April. We're going to be announcing our premiere date next week. And we'll have a larger trailer coming out fairly soon.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, do you want to say anything else about the trailer? Do you want to say anything else about these shorts?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing all of this. It's next time you watch a movie, thank the person who edited it, because it's a lot more work than anybody knows.
It is a thankless and tireless process.
Tiring, I think, actually, but
yes.
Yeah.
Did I say tireless?
Tireless. Well, you have to be tireless in order to do it, I think. But yeah, we hope that we'll see more people for the Perpetua premiere. Also, the shorts are available on our website. If you go to our shows tab, there's a tab that says watch, and all of our shorts are up there, including ones that we didn't air tonight. And they are free for your use. So if you have a church service, you're welcome to play it at the church service as an intro to your own sermon series. If you just want to share it on YouTube because your friend needs a laugh, go for it. If you want to play it in class to show people what old ladies have lived through, go for it. They are 100% free for your use, so take advantage of them.
Yes. What a beautiful thing. Media made and delivered to the people for use. All right. Well, that's all I have.
I think it's all I had too.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Focus Locus viewers. We will be back next Wednesday at 7. Same time, same place. See you there, and have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Come now.